Welcome this week to the Dragonproof Ecommerce Podcast. This is Rick Wilson. I'm CEO of Miva and author of Dragonproof Ecommerce, as well as host of this podcast. And this is a business podcast, but there's something going on right now that can't be ignored, which is what's happening in the streets. It's the only topic right now. The protesting, which is mostly like 99% peaceful, and I'm in huge support of it. It's just fucking enough, right? It's time to make a change. And it's tough questions for all of us. And to see the protests not just happening in one city, but in all of these cities around the country, is really what makes me feel like this might be a sea change. And then on top of that, you have COVID, right? And you have unemployment, and you have how COVID and unemployment are disproportionately affecting the communities of people of color. And they're all directly connected to how we do business. So you guys probably, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know him well. I've invited my good friend John Lawson back for many, many reasons. Because A, he's an expert in e-commerce, and B, John and I have had a long history that I think is a worthwhile conversation for today. And so I want to talk about how these crises are converging and what our industry can do about it. And the first story I kind of want to tell is, for many of you who may or may not know about John, John is a gay man. So he's not just a person of color, but he's also gay. So John chose all sorts of challenges to have in his life. But the first time John told me he was gay, we were at IRCE, which is an internet retailer conference in Chicago. We were in an Uber in a Suburban, taking my staff out to dinner. So it was my staff and John and I. And John's talking about his marriage, and he tells me that he went to New York to get married. This is before gay marriage was legal. So he tells me that he went to New York to get married, and he's kind of tap dancing around, which I already saw where it was going, but he's sort of tap dancing around what he's trying to tell me, which is that he's gay, and he's waiting to see how I reply. Like, he's waiting to see if I'm cool or not cool. And rightfully so, to see if I was a dick or not. But what's weird is the power dynamic there, right? Like, why did John have to worry about what I give a shit about, right? And I think that impacts this whole conversation we're about to have. So with that, welcome, John.
Yay, welcome, John. What's up?
I can see John, but no one else can. So let's talk about Tim Cook's statement on privilege today. One of countless corporate responses, but this caught my eye. So Tim Cook said today, "This is a moment when many people may want nothing more than to return to normalcy or to return to status quo. If we avert our gaze from injustice, as difficult as it may be to admit, that desire itself is a sign of privilege." I couldn't agree with Tim more. And Tim, also like John, is a gay man. And it took him a long time to come out because he was the CEO of the most powerful corporation in America. And I think anyone who's in an arguably marginalized community has to contemplate and consider how privilege impacts their lives. So I'm going to let John talk for a
second. I mean, dude, you're absolutely on point. And it also is the water we all swim in, right? So it's like privilege, it's a coined term, and I think a lot of it doesn't totally do its best to explain how it really is. And I don't know who came up with the term, how white privilege became a thing, but it's just one of those things that was probably a great hashtag and ended up becoming part of the lexicon. But I don't know if, I think the real thing is the underprivileged that really should be highlighted, not privilege. Privilege is just where you are, right?
Absolutely. That's sort of the difference between equality and equity, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So we have equality theoretically in the eyes of the law, although the protests this week have sort of shown that may not be totally true. But we have equality in the eyes of the law, but equity is a different story. I've had my own fights, right? Like, so I was 450 pounds at my peak. I've had to fight my own arguments. But I suspect, and I'm going to ask you this question, but I suspect that the little bit of pushback I saw from society for being abnormal is minor compared to what you've experienced.
I think, well, see, here's the thing. Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to kill you because you're fat.
No, they'll make fun of you, but they're not going to kill you. I've never had a cop want to fucking put his knee on my neck because I'm fat.
Exactly. Or because you're gay.
Right.
See?
No,
You
totally.
know, so yeah, both of those.
There's some people who might want to kill you for being gay, but only like in Alabama.
Yeah, trust me, it's more than just Alabama, but it is definitely those kinds of things. But I was telling somebody the other day, being black and gay, only one of those can I pretend like I'm not.
Right, absolutely.
Right? I mean, Candace does a great job, but she still can't pretend like she's not black, you know?
Yep.
So that's the difference. I can't necessarily, hide that part of me. And people's prejudice based on just sight alone is something you can't even.
I mean, I would assume you've had I'm guessing, but
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. I would assume you've had the experience of literally people fucking crossing streets, not taking the elevator, doing all those sorts of things simply because of the way you look.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I don't know if I don't, I'm not one to pay that much attention.
Right.
Because I don't care about people anyway. It's like, I'm teasing.
No, you take responsibility for doing your shit.
Yeah. But, but I don't remember actually seeing somebody, on an elevator move away from me or not take the elevator. I haven't consciously, I'm sure there have been some. I have been followed through, department stores and malls.
Oh, by security?
Yeah. So that's one of the things. But I'll never forget. I grew up, I was born in New York City. And then my dad moved us to Dallas, Texas. And this was in the 70s. So this was before Dallas was cool.
Right.
And it was a jarring transition to go from New York, which sort of is a melting pot of many different cultures, to Texas, which was really black, white, and some Mexicans.
Dallas is a particular kind of white, but I mean, you point blank told me one time when I asked how you ended up in Atlanta, you were like, I ended up in Atlanta because it was, I think you called it Mecca for black people.
Yes. I'd never seen.
You were like, I can go to Atlanta and I can. First of all, it's generally a black population, and I can succeed without prejudice here.
And the leadership's all black, pretty
right.
much. I mean, the politicians are black. You can't go to a white tablecloth restaurant in Atlanta and be the only black person there.
Right. Absolutely.
Which is, I mean, I don't even, like, again, the water I swim in. So it's not until I leave Atlanta and visit other places that I recognize, wow, how great Atlanta is. Because, I go.
I love San Diego. We lily white.
Pretty white. Depending.
I mean, sure, of course. And I
mean, white tablecloth restaurants.
Absolutely.
Rooftop bars.
I can go to lots of places in San Diego and never see a person of color.
Yeah. You're not going to get that in Atlanta.
So let's bring this back to the actual topic of the podcast, which is business and digital and e-commerce. So is the beauty of digital that it allows individuals to compete with minimum resources? Like, do you consider this to be a vehicle that levels the playing field?
Absolutely. I always say the internet was the great leveler. And I started my internet business because of that. I don't think I would have been successful doing anything the way that I have been doing this because of the ability to not be forward facing.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I see that. I mean,
or at least at the time, right? We're talking 20 years ago now.
I don't want to sound trite, but e-commerce is functionally colorblind, at least as a technology.
Pretty much. Doesn't care who you are, as long as they get their package.
Have you worked in other fields other than e-commerce?
Oh, yeah. I was an IT consultant. And then prior to that, I was, worked in computer rooms. So.
And do you find e-commerce to be more or less inclusive, or how do you find it all to work out?
I mean, it's getting more and more inclusive. I mean, there was many years there where I was the only black guy in the room. I give
Yeah,
it a
no, I
compliment.
can imagine. I mean, I remember early days of e-commerce. I can imagine that.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
all
it
a
was
bunch
a
of white
huge
dorks who could write HTML.
right. But it's definitely changed a lot since then. So yeah, yeah, for sure. Because
I
there's
mean,
opportunity for everyone.
absolutely. And so one of the things that's going on right now that's also a backdrop to all this is that unemployment because of COVID is disproportionately hitting people of color. The New York Times says half of all black people are currently unemployed.
Half of all black people are not employed, eh?
So,
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I'm assuming it is because I trust the New York Times. What does that mean for all of us? What do we do?
Well, I mean, unemployment in general is really bad. This is the this is basically a case of low wage workers being unemployed.
Absolutely.
When they say 50% black, I would say that is very concentrated in certain areas of
Yeah.
the country. The New Yorks, the Chicagos, where you have a lot of the low wage workers being people of color.
Yep.
So that will pump up the numbers somewhat. What that means is that we're about to. I don't. When the money runs out, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah,
When they
I've been
stop
wondering.
throwing the money.
I've been wondering the same thing. I mean, I think they're going to have to keep throwing the money until this
Yeah.
is over. And
Yeah. And I mean, we can't forever keep throwing the money, but we got plenty of years worth of money to throw. Let's
yeah,
not.
we have to pay the piper someday, but I feel like they have to keep throwing for a year or two at least.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They need to think about that. And that money, and here's the thing, and I think people misrepresent what throwing money is. When they give money to people that are unemployed, those people don't hold on to the money.
No, it goes right back to the economy.
Exactly. So
Yep.
it's like all these people's like, we can't give handouts. Like, trust me, the handout is for the businesses
Well, the
because
handout's what's
without
keeping
those
us
people
afloat right
shopping,
now.
right?
The handouts are absolutely what's keeping us afloat right now. I was just reading an article yesterday that consumer spending went down by 13.6% in April, but personal incomes went up by 10.5% because of the stimulus. So you have a situation where it's absolutely what's keeping this whole system functioning. Now, you can't do that forever,
No.
but it's currently keeping the system functioning.
Yeah. That's what they're doing. I mean, because this is America. They can't give money straight to corporations.
I mean, except for PPP, but yeah.
Except, well, right. But the PPP itself was done to keep people employed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right?
I mean, and we did that too. We initially laid off about 13 people, and then we've brought almost all of them back once we got our PPP loan. So, yeah, no, that actually functioned. So, I mean, do you think if you run your own e-commerce business, you're protected right now
Protected from what?
from all the turmoil in the economy?
I think if you run your own e-commerce business, you have better visibility to people right now because they're sitting at home mostly, you
Yep.
know. But when the money dries up, I think we're the first ones to feel it too, because most of us are in non-essential e-commerce businesses.
That's true. So a good friend of mine who was a longtime Meva customer, she sells jewelry to the body mod industry, right? So like imagine like gold like things you put like here or here in your cheeks. And when it all first hit, she went from $40,000 a week in sales to zero. She had 2 weeks of zero sales. And then the stimulus stuff went out and she went back to 25,000 a week.
Right.
The stimulus and the bigger unemployment. So she's currently living on that. I mean, her business is functioning on that. But when that money dries up,
What's going to happen?
they're all, I mean, her customers are all service workers, right? So, I mean, no one's going back to serving, being bartenders anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully they will, but how that works and how does the crowd work? And, even if they go back, when they go back, the number of people that they're serving is low. And
That's kind of my point. I mean, would you be
yeah,
willing to be in a crowded bar right now? Of
no,
course not. Neither would I.
not, not even for a protest.
Not exactly. I mean, look, I am I'm a different kind of diva than John, but I'm a diva. I love travel. I freaking love going to Hawaii. I love scuba diving. I love all that stuff. I imagine that I'm probably not getting on a plane until 2022.
Yeah. 2022, eh?
Maybe late 2021.
Okay.
But I'm kind of, I mean, we can come back to this, but I'm kind of thinking we're at least 15 to 18 months from me being willing to be in a small cylinder with people coughing.
Yeah. As soon as they start coughing, I'm freaking out.
Absolutely. So one of the things you and I talked about, so you and I were actually talking Saturday night when I invited you to be back on this week, which Saturday night was arguably the most harrowing night in American history since at least 1968.
Yeah.
World War II. And one of the things I suggested to you was, empires build themselves to protect themselves from the threats of the past, right? So we have these rad military stuff. We have F-35s that freaking, I see them in San Diego because they're here. They're dope as fuck. But what we didn't see coming, and I'm not sure any country could have seen it coming, was a combination of smartphone videos, social media, and a blindness, for lack of a better term. I know it's kind of trite, but for lack of a better term, to white privilege. So you and I both know a lot of white people who do not want to acknowledge that we're privileged. In fact, I'll even say this for myself. It took me years to acknowledge that. Like, I remember meeting an activist at Burning Man in 2005 before. And she was really the first person who started me on a journey, and I don't want to make this about me, but she started me on a journey to understanding what privilege meant. Because I used to make the same stupid arguments, right? Like, well, I was fat, I fought, I did this, I did that. And so, like, I sounded like all the other idiots. And so you and I were talking Saturday night, and I said, hey, let's do the podcast this week and let's talk about this. So, I mean, is there a way for America to recover from all this?
Oh, America will move on. We've had worse, believe it or not, and I was telling somebody else that too, it's like she was worried about all the riots and all that. I'm like, look, that stuff will get rebuilt. Trust me,
Do you think them arresting the other 3 cops today and upgrading the charges to second degree make a difference?
Absolutely. Everybody kept asking me, it's like, what do we do, John? How do we fix it? I'm like, it's so fucking simple. Justice.
Yeah, I mean, they could have arrested 4 people in the beginning and stopped
the first day.
All this madness.
Bro, if I walk out this door right now, walk into my neighbor's house and shoot his family, right? Him and all of his people, and I wait for the cops to come, I will not be able to eat dinner at my home for the next 9 days. That's not, I don't know what kind of bullshit they came up with to do this, but they do it over and over again. I don't get it. It's not right. And that's what justice really is. Justice is, what do I want to happen if it had happened to me?
Totally. I saw a speaker the other day. She's been kind of, I'd never heard of her before, but she's been widely circulating on social media, kind of an older white lady. And she was doing a speech in front of a bunch of white people. And she asked them to raise their hand if they would be willing to live the Black experience.
Yeah.
And literally no one raised their hand. And
not even the Black people.
Well, I think the audience was mostly white. Yeah, totally. Not even the Black people. And, and that struck me. Like, I had actually never thought about that, but that struck me. Like, would I trade my position for your position, even though I think we're equivalents? No, because I get the benefit of the doubt.
And the thing is, you talk about Donald Trump, and there is a segment of the population that is extremely, extremely behind him. Right, that's the far right and those kind of guys. But there are others that are. Here's what I say. Here's what I believe they are. If you ever be on the lake and the boat goes by, that boat destroys and disturbs all of the water in front of it. Right, and then it leaves behind a nice little wake for you to sit on your rubber raft and go up and down on. And that's what Donald Trump is.
Totally. I like to say I'm a sailor, so I sail on San Diego Bay all the time. And you're supposed to keep it at, I don't know, five knots or something. And then there's assholes who fly by you at like 20 miles an hour and they rock the sailboat because the sailboat's not, you're under wind power.
Right, yeah.
It's a version of that. So, I mean, disruption always happens. I mean, you never see the disruption coming. I wouldn't have guessed COVID or protest. I mean, I couldn't have guessed anything about 2020. But I mean, but what do you think this is similar to social disruption? Like, what do you think is going to happen from a business perspective from status quo? Where do you think this all shakes out?
Well, you know what? One thing, if I'm, and I don't want to be, I don't know, this could be the third thing. Bad things come in threes.
True.
Right?
Yep.
So this could be the third thing because Kobe was the first.
I guess that's true. We had
That
Kobe.
affected us all.
Yep.
Affected us all. The whole world was freaked out. Then came COVID, and now comes this. That could be the third thing. Or
well, I pray that it's the end of the.
I pray it
line,
is
right. I mean, I don't want a fourth or fifth thing.
But one of the things we do need to be aware of is that the reverberations of good things come from social media, right? And where we are with the phones and stuff, and the reverberation of bad things. So as a nimble business owner, you want to be able to shift and move, because I don't think we're going to slow down our shifting of society
right
anytime soon, whether good or bad. So just be prepared, be ready. I just don't think we're going to be able to sit back and rock and it's like, yeah, things are great all the time.
Sure, yeah. You're not in an inner tube like riding along in the wake.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because it feels like that.
So Alvin and Heidi Toffler have written a number of books, and one of them is called The Third Wave, which is pretty old now. But it talks about the switch from agrarian to industrial and industrial to information. And they talk about how each of these changes, these fundamental disruptions in society, they're ultimately great for society, right? I mean, if you go back to the 1700s, 92% of Americans were working on farms. And now it's like 2%. And we have more food than then. But usually during that change, there's conflict. So how do we navigate this conflict? How do we restore, my personal belief is this. I'm a believer in American exceptionalism in the sense that we had high ideals. But those ideals were set by imperfect people doing imperfect things. And the idea is over time to get better, right? To up your game, right? So how do we up our game at this point?
Well, one of the things is you think about the times that we are in right now. Like you said, it's a lot of upheaval. And those are the times actually that the smart ones among us in business make the most money.
Agreed.
Some of our biggest corporations that we have today were born out of the 1930s, right? Just old school money, right? But if you also look at corporations like Uber, even Amazon's rise and stuff like that, that actually came, Slack, all of that came through the second or the Great Recession.
Right. Yeah. A lot of technology came out of 2008 in addition to the dot-com boom. Yeah.
And I think we are approaching that again with, 40 million now, like you said, being unemployed when the money runs out. You got to trust and believe that it is going to be an opportunity for business and entrepreneurs and those of us with that kind of spirit, because money never dries up. It just moves.
Moves. Money goes to where it's liked.
That's right. So it's an opportunity for you and I. Don't get caught up in all the negative think. You just got to be ready to pivot.
So how do you think, obviously racism isn't new. It's as old as humanity. But
right.
How do you think technology can help solve the current problems?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, it's doing what it's doing right now, which is, first comes awareness.
Right.
And then after you're aware of your issues, then you have to take ownership of your issues. And after you take ownership of it, I don't know, it's the damn 12 steps, right? And then after you do that, you start calling all your friends and being apologizing, right? There's
absolutely.
Definitely.
Even, again, not trying to make it about me, but to admit that I was raised in a privileged racist society that I benefited from is something I probably couldn't have said 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, maybe. I'll
have a great analogy.
I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt. 15 years ago.
But I have a great analogy for you. This is about America. I'm going to tell you about America. See, let's say me and you are friends. All right. And
we are.
which we are, but I'm talking about as kids. Me and
Oh,
you are
okay.
kids, and we
Yep.
play together all the time. All
Yep.
right. And we play together at your house. And my mom brings me over to your house because my mom actually cleans the house that your parents own.
Oh,
She
sure.
works in the house, and me and you play together, and we're buddies, right? So one day we're playing up in the attic, and we find a trunk, and we find inside of the trunk that there's paperwork that actually shows that your great grandfather and my great grandfather started the company that made your family rich together.
Yep.
And he swindled my great grandfather out of it by signing the paperwork. And we find this evidence. What do we do?
I mean, what does America do right now?
No,
Nothing.
but I'm saying that's American. That's America.
I mean, right now, what we do, right now, what America does, at least white America, says, "Hey, that was the past. Sorry, can't do
They
anything."
tear up the paper. They burn the paper.
Yeah, we can't do anything for you. Sorry about that.
Exactly. See, but that is a basic, very easy analogy to understand of where we are. We own this country together. We are in this. We built this together, right? Except
Yep.
I was free labor.
Well, I mean, look, I loved my father. My father was a really good human being, but my father was born in Oklahoma in 1932. So there were things that my father said when I was a kid that when I look back on, frankly, they were just fucked up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he would say things like, if your sister ever brings home a black eye, I'll
Yeah.
kill her, kind of thing. I love black people. Everyone should own one. Stupid fucking racist ass shit that in the 80s was kind of accepted, and definitely in the 30s to 70s was totally accepted. I mean, it was Archie Bunker in real life.
Right. Right.
And the thing is, when you're a child, you don't realize that you're being programmed with that. Like, so you don't realize that that's like someone typing into your computer and telling you that stuff in your head, and how much work it takes to undo those things.
No, you know what? It's not even typing it in the computer. It is the boot. It's the root programming.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's the boot ROM.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
just think about it. Like, yeah, everything after that you type in.
Yep. No, totally. I get that. And the weird thing is when you see it, once you sort of have some revelations, I mean, you didn't need to have the revelations because you lived it. But once you're in my shoes and you have the revelations, suddenly you see it, and then you're conflicted about what the fuck do we do?
Right.
How the fuck do we solve this problem? I mean, we've done horrible things to people, and going forward, we have to go forward from a place of love and hope. And how do we do it? And so, like, on that content, on that concept, like, how is content and personal tech changing the game versus before? Like, how does you having your own voice fundamentally change the world?
I mean, if you think about it, it's the ability for each of us to be our own little news media, right? Not only are we our own media, for our group of people, we are our own opinion piece. We are our own, we put your groups together and we'll do things together and make movements. And I think that's very powerful. And that's probably going to be the thing that's going to move us all forward. It's going to be the individual clusters.
Now, do you think social media fundamentally sort of reveals some of those old prejudices?
Right. At first, it definitely does, but
it also gives you a chance to talk about them, though. If someone's
that's what I'm about to say. We need to do that because it's been hidden in the closet for so long.
Yep. So I mean, so like I had to address this week. So we did a town hall yesterday, and I made a brief statement about the unrest. But I also hate those freaking emails from the CEO shit. It's all crap.
It's all crap.
It's so horrible, right? I mean, no one wants to hear from fucking me about social unrest. So I made like a 2-sentence statement on our town hall for those who cared, and you either watch it or you don't, and they'll listen to this podcast or they won't, and that's kind of the extent of what we're going to do. How do you think companies use that same power in the age of social media? Like, what should companies be doing? What should business owners be doing right now?
Right now, business owners, I believe, need to state a little bit, like you said, 2 lines of supporting the idea of change. I mean, it's so stupid simple. Do that, right? And then from going forward, figure out ways that you can support that thing that is moving inside of you. There's so many different ways right now to support this movement, right? There's
Yep.
organizations that have been around for centuries. There's organizations being started right now. If you just want to put your money where your mouth is, definitely do that. If you want to do something, I mean, I'm talking about putting together, an entrepreneurial venture for underprivileged, not youth. I'm tired of the youth thing. I need to change the adults, right?
Absolutely agree.
Right? It's like, how do you take a kid out of a underprivileged home and feed them sandwiches and then send them back?
Well, and most kids still have hope in some form.
Yeah, they do. They're easy.
Worse than a 40-year-old person who's lost hope.
Right. And in this environment that we're going into post-COVID, I think it's needed. And
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we have a 10-year, we likely have a 10-year economic cycle in front of us that's going to be bumpy, to say the least. This kind of goes how companies are doing this stuff right now. So some seem to get it, some are confused, some are tone deaf. What did you think of Ben & Jerry's statement today or yesterday?
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah.
You like that, right?
Yeah.
That was freaking awesome.
That was freaking awesome. I've seen a couple of good ones, man, and that's where we're at right now.
Well, and also, if I screw up his name, I apologize, but I think his name is Robert Smith, the CEO of Vista Capital Partners. And he put out a memo to his companies basically saying this. I mean, first of all, he's the wealthiest black man in America, so he has a little bit of sway, so to speak. But he put out a memo to his companies saying, essentially mimicking what Martin Luther King used to teach. We need to lead with love. Love is how we solve these problems. Tit for tat hate's not going to get us anywhere.
No.
But at the same point, I mean, you and I are close friends on Facebook. At the same point, being pissed off right now is totally acceptable.
For a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it probably got a little better today when they arrested the other three assholes.
Absolutely. I think it's more frustration than anything, because it keeps happening over and over and over.
I mean, have you ever been pulled over for driving while black?
Dude, I told somebody the other day, it's like, I'm at the point in my life where I make fuck you money, so I drive nice cars. I get pulled over a lot.
So, like, I'll even joke, because I also drive nice cars, as you know. And,
right.
And I'll joke. I mean, so this is a symbol of privilege. Like, I'll joke that, like, I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want because no one's going to pull me over. Right? I can drive 100 miles an hour in my fancy car, and they're barely going to look at me.
God, there's a friend of mine that lives in your city. You know Billy Jean?
I don't think I do, actually.
Okay, so Billy Jean is a marketer, and he does a lot of internet marketing stuff, social media. Anyway, I asked Billy, I was like, because he's doing crazy numbers, 10 million, 20 million a year.
Right.
I don't know. And I asked him, I said, what, from a business perspective, what's probably the most impactful thing you ever bought for your business? And we were laughing and joking. And he said, I bought that car out there. And I was like, that's really funny. He's like, no shit. Literally, I bought the car to put it in the commercials. And that really helped, right? You get it, right?
I mean, you've seen our office. I mean, one of the reasons granted, COVID changes the whole concept of commercial real estate, but the reason we grabbed that office space right on the 15 overlooking the freeway was so we could stick our name right there.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Beautiful, right?
Yep.
So it's all about that kind of brand and marketing. But then like about 3 weeks later, he hit me and said, I got pulled over. And I'm like, what'd you get pulled over? He got pulled over for the car because he's a black man in the car.
Oh, I didn't realize he was black. Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. So, so these are the things easily. So me personally, I've been pulled over several times, but I'm one of those people. I know exactly how to handle cops.
Yeah, you're going to get yourself right out of that situation, but you're still getting pulled over and I'm not.
That's right.
Right. And I remember
it becomes frustrating. And you always are on the lookout.
Totally. A few years ago, I was on a date, and my date was running late. We were going to a concert. And so we were heading from San Diego to Del Mar to get to the venue. And we were running late. And so I picked her up in my little sports car, and I think I was running probably 120 miles an hour on the 5. And she looked at me, she's like, "Do you always drive like this?" And I'm like, "I do whatever the fuck I want." But that's because I can. And that's the difference. I mean, that's the fundamental concept of privilege.
So let's throw a firecracker in the mix here. All right. So John is not only black, gay, but I'm also married to a white guy.
Yep. A good
right?
guy, but yeah.
And so here's the deal, which is very interesting for me because we're talking through this and we've talked through other things too. But right now in this moment, you know, I remember a very specific story. He got into a car accident and he had been downtown. He's like, "Oh my God, I just hit somebody. It was a little fender bender, just ran in the back. Oh God, I hit somebody. And I just left the restaurant and I had a beer. And oh my God." And I'm like, chill out. You only had one beer. You're not drunk, you know? But he was really freaking out. And so they pull the car over. The lady gets out of the car. He hits them, and it's a black woman, and she's going totally, "You fucking," she's just railing on him, because it was his fault. He was like,
Sure.
"I'm sorry, it's my fault." Here's the thing: the cop gets there. The lady's like, "He must be drunk. You check him." Blah 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 blah. The cop gets her to cool off. He comes over to my husband, white guy. He's like, "You give me your license." He got his license, took down the information, and sent my husband home.
Totally.
And
benefit of the doubt.
Right. He was so like, I don't know. He was just upset. He was like in tears. He was upset because he was like, "I can't believe that I just had experience for real some white privilege with the cops."
So sort of a segue here, but valid question. So going back to my concept of, these emails from the CEOs about their statements, and you and I both think they're crap. But so like when Nike posts a pro BLM message, it's funny because as a Burning Man guy, I feel like BLM stands for Bureau of Land Management. But for when Nike posts a Black Lives Matter message, how do you do you feel like it's legit? Do you feel like it's heartfelt? How should companies currently be addressing this? Like, should they stay quiet? Should they? So what I did yesterday was I just talked about my own opinion. I didn't state Miva feels these things. I said I feel these things.
Right.
Okay, because Miva is just a group of people. It doesn't have actual feelings.
Well, I mean, Nike put their money where their mouth is, man. Remember
with Cap.
With Cap, yeah.
He
paid him big money, put him on a billboard, and supported his move that we are talking about today that he was kneeling about years ago. So, and Nike's not stupid. Here's the thing: you've got to, again, know your audience. I mean, if you don't service Black people, then, you might not be compelled. But I mean, if you do, you need to be out here. You don't have to be leading and charging. You just need to be supporting the movement.
And authentic.
Whatever that is.
Right. So, I mean, how, for small business owners, how do we create real change as an individual business owner?
Well, I mean, as a small business owner, you just change yourself. All right. Because if you do right, your business will do right. You'll find the opportunities will find you. You might, bring in some apprentice and start helping them to create a career mind that they can move forward after working with you for a summer. That's something you can easily do. Things like that. The opportunities will find you if your heart is in the right place.
And I think this is sort of what we talked about on our last podcast, where people can see through your bullshit.
Absolutely.
So we had an interesting moment today. So we normally record these podcasts at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays, and I have a senior management meeting at 11 a.m. And so we were talking about diversity and all the stuff that's going on, but I'm on Zoom and I can see the 10 people in front of me, and I've got 2 white women and 8 white men. And I was like, we have a freaking diversity problem. And part of it's systemic, right? So part of it is people aren't necessarily trained for those positions, and part of it's you've got to give people opportunity. So it's a weird mixture, because I'm certainly committed to having a diverse culture. And a few years ago, it would have been all white men. So at least we got two women.
You got some women.
We got some women now. But I mean, but we need to. But we have a lot of work to do on diversity within our own company.
Well, that's good. I can help you with that.
Yeah,
because I mean, here's the thing: your diversity in your organization will expand your ability to market and resonate with different people. So if you want to grow your business these days, diversity is the thing. Diversity is a benefit. It's not an outreach.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, sort of a weird analogy, but things that are cross-pollinated tend to be healthier.
Yeah.
Right. So
right. And I think that's the environment we're moving into, a much healthier environment.
So that's a great question. So do you think the outcome of all this is positive?
I do think we're at a watershed moment. I hope we are. I was telling somebody.
I do too.
I hope so too. Right? Yeah. After all the stuff we're going through. But I mean, I think, this could be like similar to Me Too, where there was a change, at least a change, like people take the complaint seriously and understand that there is something there. There's some there this time.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, like, so Me Too isn't like as in sort of on the front and center that it was a couple years ago. But I know for me personally, it caused me to look back at my past and question choices I had made.
Right.
Like, I knew I hadn't done anything illegal or horrible, but like, how much like the white privilege thing, how had I possibly used my power in a way that wasn't respectful?
Right.
So
but that changes how you're going to be going forward.
Absolutely. So it changes how you're going to be going forward, but it also changes how you mentor people. It changes the culture you build, right? Yeah. So if you look at the culture we have at MIVA, I would say even though we have a diversity problem, we have a very inclusive culture. Like, we have a culture of people who are loving and helpful and want to make the world a better place. Yeah. So do you think businesses have a responsibility to speak out?
You see, that some depends on your position, okay? And the reason why I say that is because everybody's not a leader.
Right.
Right? So when I'm talking about when you say speaking out, everybody's not comfortable doing that or not good at it. So if that's not you, join an organization or support others that are doing what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Do you think that now is a moment? I do. And do you think now is a moment that we all have to be involved in the conversation?
You know what? You are whether you are or not.
I mean, you can't stick your head in the sand, though.
You can't stick your head in the sand this time.
Yeah, no.
Because people are looking.
That moment switched. I mean, if it hadn't switched before Trump freaking tear gas and flashbanged peaceful protesters right after saying I respect peaceful protesters, I don't know what does.
But you know what? Another thing is, too, people are watching. And here's the hard part. I hate when politics get into things, because politics really does cloudy the water, right? And that's what Trump is doing in terms of interjecting himself. Most presidents haven't done that. They bring people together.
What's the thing you do on your Facebook when people try to change the conversation? You put a pretzel up.
Yeah, you're twisting. Yeah,
you're twisting the conversation.
Yeah, you're trying to twist it. So I do, and because one of the things is I respect the right for people to have a political difference, but when we're talking about the fair treatment of other humans, I don't think there's room for politics in that.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I mean, so I was talking to Jen Hardman, our VP of HR, I guess yesterday. And, one thing that most people wouldn't know about me is that I grew up I grew up in the 80s in Orange County. I kind of grew up as a Reagan Republican, right? And so, but I've really voted. I voted Clinton twice, then I voted for Bush, then I voted for Kerry, then I voted for Obama, then I voted for Romney, and I definitely did not vote for Trump. But so I'm sort of the definition of the middle of the road, right? I'm I believe that a rising tide floats all boats. So you want businesses to succeed. But there is no room for politics in the conversation of humanity.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's what we're talking about here. This is just straight up humanity, and I just don't see that being like, oh, what side is anti-humanity? That's just stupid, you know.
Literally idiotic.
It is idiotic. It's self-deprecating in its own formulation. You're taking away from your own self.
Yet I see some of the comments on your Facebook feed, and I'm a little worried about society.
Here's the one thing I did kind of, you need to have dissenting views, but you don't have to have idiotic views. And so I'm removing a lot of the idiocy.
Yeah, I liked. Was it your post yesterday about how to unfriend racists?
What did I say? I
Well,
don't
you
remember.
showed the all lives matter thing.
Oh, yeah. That all lives matter drives me crazy.
I'm sure.
But I had to explain to some people. I had people that when I posted that are friends of mine.
Yeah, you had that one friend who was a legitimate friend who was not being an asshole.
No,
that lady who was just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And you even commented later on. You're like, she's not being an asshole.
I had to because you're about to go in.
Oh yeah, people were beating on her.
And I told her, but it was so simple. I said, look, if your mom dies today and you come to me and say, John, my mom passed today. And I'm like,
say all moms matter.
All moms matter. What the hell kind of asshole are you? That's just so like, I don't get that,
You're a Sean Hannity kind of asshole.
Yeah, right. Exactly. To the nth degree. So, yep. And then the thing is, if all lives matter, then Black lives have to matter for all lives to matter. So if you see Black lives actually not mattering right now, then you can't say all lives matter by default.
So
by default, you're full of shit.
So, let's get back to business here as we close out. So
business
2020, right? So we started out in 2019 with one dragon called Amazon. And we introduced COVID, and we introduced the current social unrest. I'm hoping you're correct that bad things come in threes, and this is all about to end. But sort of what do you see as where do you see business going for the next year?
Well, I'll just tell you, man, I think the larger corporations are having trouble, that the smaller corps are also having some trouble, but I think we're going to be able to weather that storm.
Yep.
And going forward, stop eating out of your cash register. All right. We got to put that money away and prepare for these storms that will come around. And just think about, when did you start Miva? How old is that?
So Miva itself started in 97. I came to work for Miva in 99, and then I bought it in 2007.
Okay. So it's such
I never imagined in a million years I'd be doing this for this long.
Right. But it's such a young company. And most of us started
in historical context, totally.
Yeah. And most of us started after you.
Yep.
So we have to recognize that we're still babies in this thing. I know just because you're making 7, 8, 9, 10 figures, we feel like we're all that and we're established, but we're still young fledgling companies, and we want to act like it and move like it, because every corner we turn, there's some sort of boogeyman trying to stamp us out so that we can become part of that small business statistic of the ones that don't make it.
Sure. No, I agree. The thing that I think a lot of people forget in terms of disruption is that disruption is where success starts, right? So, if you look at all of the really hugely successful examples in history, disruption was the first step. So with that said, I want to thank you, John, for coming on the podcast. You're always a good friend and a favorite guest. I thank you for your thoughts. Everyone out there, stay safe in the time of COVID and social unrest and all the other stuff. And I suspect that we will have you back on this podcast soon. Although every time I have you on the podcast, society seems to be like crumbling.
I know, right?
If I have you back soon, that may be a bad sign. So you can find us on all your favorite podcast apps, and leave us a review, please. And thank you for listening.